someone in that position could grieve and move on and try to press forward, or you could do something with it, and you're doing something with it. You're gonna you started the Jacob Mulligan Charity, and you broke the rail record for the Atlas Stone, and now you're gonna do. We mentioned it in the bio. You're gonna do the heaviest marathon, carrying 220-pound stone, and then you're gonna get that stone cut in the Jacob's tombstone, and then carry another 450 miles. And so I want people to know why you're doing that. The kind of mission behind the charity and why you're doing that. It's not just to, bring attention to your situation. You're doing it for a bigger purpose. And
the day after Jacob died, I was walking through the hospital, and the woman said, and this is just the way my mind works. Right. She was like, "How you feeling?" I was like, "Yeah, I want to go run 100 miles for charity to raise money for stillbirth." She was like, "Okay, just take some time."
Yeah.
Like you don't need to be doing that right now. And I was like, no, but I need people are going to be feeling how I'm feeling right now, and they're going to go through what I'm going through. Like I want to have impact. I want to change the way people see this, and, help people. And so that was from the get-go that I felt that. 8-9 years later, I've actually managed to do it. So there was a big journey in between that and this was again, speaking to Erwin McManus, that had enough impact on me to be able to process it and get through it, and actually be able to start to share. So I knew that I wanted to do something. I knew I was approaching that time period where I was in the position that I could do something. And with stillbirth, the British government will cover a funeral, a basic funeral. What they won't cover in that budget is a headstone. And because of that, what happens is if I am provided with the funeral cover, I get a grant. I go to the funeral home, I've got a grant. They say, this is the basic package you're going to get. However, this is a headstone, it's £2,000. You need a headstone for your child. Otherwise, their graveside is going to be blank. And you start to feel really guilty. You start to feel crappy. You start to, guilt is the biggest word, I would say. And then they also, the funeral homes in the UK, I shouldn't harp on about this too much because it's not about this, but they make more money on children and baby headstones. Their margins are higher than they are on normal headstones. So none of this sat right with me. And I knew that every time I went up to Jacob's grave, he didn't have a gravestone. I didn't have enough money at the time after Jacob passed to do it. And since then, it's just I've never had one on there because I always kind of felt that I was going to do what I'm going to do. But all the other graves, around 50 to 60% of the graves at the baby cemetery don't have gravestones, So it wasn't just me who, you're expecting a child. So you have all your money into clothes and cots and cribs. And the last thing you're thinking of is paying £2,000 or £3,000 for a headstone and getting exploited by some company. So I think a lot of people are unable to make that decision. And financially, it's too much of a burden where they can't cover it. So I kind of knew it wanted to raise money for headstones. I started the Instagram page about a year before I found the stone. And I was up in the Scottish Highlands. I was filming a documentary up there. And I see this stone on the beach. And it's this, I say a stone, it's like this huge boulder rock.
Yeah,
it's massive. Yeah. It's this huge thing. And I'm with Neve actually. And we've got the cameras because we're filming this documentary. And I was like, hey, let me just go. I stop in the middle of the road. It's this horrendous road. It's super dangerous. I pull up. She said, what are you doing? I'm like, I seen a rock. She's like, what are you on about? I was like, I got an idea. Like, just follow me down here. There's about an 8-foot wall. I jumped down to the river it's near Loch Ness. And I jumped down to the river and I see it. And it's just this perfect square. It's perfectly square. It's got a huge slab equal all the way around. And I said to Neve, that's his headstone. I can see it. Like, that's going to be his headstone. It's perfect. So I go to pick it up. I'd not long finished training for the Atlas stone. So I still had a little bit of stone lifting ability. Yeah. And it was so awkwardly shaped that it was difficult to lift. And I was like, wow, that's a heavy lump of rock right there.
Just give people context. At that time, you're 6'7", 360 pounds.
I was probably small at that point. I was probably 280 at that point.
Okay, so
I'd lost a lot. I went straight into losing weight, but I was still strong. But the problem occurred when I could lift it up. I got it to the edge of this 8-foot wall, but to press a stone, a 220-pound stone over an 8-foot wall, that's where the difficulty was. So we were there for a good 10, 15 minutes, you know, cutting my fingers up. I almost fell over because it's unstable surface. And I was just hell bent on getting this stone out of there. And I don't know how I managed to do it, but I managed to lip it over the top of the wall, slide it on, and I've taken the stone to my friend's backyard, who lives just like a minute away from there, and it sits there now. So this stone sits there. I took the measurements of the stone, weighed the stone, 220 pounds, and took a load of photos of the stone to find out what stone it is, and it's granodiorite. I think that's how you say it. And they used to use it for headstones. So this is a material they used to use.
Exactly what you need.
It's exactly what I needed. So, and again, all by chance, like I just saw this square, and that's where the plan kind of was born. And I was like, I want to carry that back to Nottingham on my own 2 feet. Like, I don't want any assistance from a motor vehicle, from another person, from wheels, from leverage. I want it strapped to my back, and I want to carry it the whole way. So yeah, that kind of, the idea was born.
So where it naturally sat,
where it naturally sat.
You've moved it from where it naturally sat to your friend's yard.
Yeah. So it's not going to get moved by anything other than me.
Yeah.
And the stonemason's 26.2 miles from where it sits right now.
Okay.
So it's a marathon. We're extending it a little bit, but it's a marathon distance. So I'm going to do, you know, a little bit more of a length so I can make it a marathon distance, so we can try and get a bit more media traction from it being the world's heaviest marathon. And then it'll be cut down to the 60, 70 pound stone, which again, that's going on the density of the stone, the measurements that I have. It should be around 60 or 70 pounds. Hopefully we're not off too much, because that's going to be horrible, 450 miles home. And 450 miles over 10 days. And 10 days because I can't take more than 10 days off work. So that's it. That's why. Yeah.
So 10 days, you're in a time crunch, and that 450 miles is to get it from the stonemason to your home? Yeah.
Stonemason to Jacob's resting place.
Okay.
So we're going to, over 10 days, run it back as fast as possible. I'd like to do it in less than 10, but I'm being told that if I'm going to survive it, it's probably better to do 10. Because the world's heaviest,
45 miles a day.
45 miles a day. Yeah, that's what we're looking at. And I get to take it all the way back to Nottingham. I'm going to be, meet with everybody once we're back in Nottingham, and I'm going to take the last 2 miles to Jacob's resting place by myself and place a stone. And I've got that vision in my head, and I've got that vision in my head in training, and the training's really brutal. And, I need to speak to you about how best placement of the stone and all that kind of stuff, because you probably got some good advice for me.
Yeah.
But at the moment, the way I've got it is, the only way I've known to do it is I've got a big, huge wooden board, big leather belt ripped across my waist, and then some like car jack, car towing material over my shoulders with a little bit of padding. And, my back's getting cut up. Every single time we do the walk, it bleeds. I've tried using Bergens. I bought a few Bergens, but they just fall apart each time I've loaded the weight, because it's the way the weight's placed. It's not spread throughout the pack. It's just awkward. So it starts to rip or damage parts of the pack. So we've gone through 2 Bergens at the moment. But yeah, it's just agony. And there's something in it for me. There is the idea of getting it back that I absolutely love, but there is something very masochistic in me that it's like, he deserves something that put me through that. I don't know if that makes sense, but
no, it does.
The trial of doing this and the difficulty of doing this is the price I'm willing to pay to make sure my son has a stone. And I like the idea of him watching me do that and thinking, you're crazy, Dad. Like, what are you doing? You know what I mean? So there's a part of it that's that. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm blown away by it. And it's, again, you got that for you and for Jacob, and that's gonna be special for the two of you. But it's going to impact so many more people, and so many more parents are going to be able to put headstones on their. So if anybody is inspired by this and thinking, wow, someone needs some parent deserves to be able to have a headstone for their, how could they, is there a way they could donate charitably, contribute to this? How can people participate?
So just on where the funds, at the moment, we're just trying to raise £25,000. So we're giving away an ice bath. You know the ice bath I've spoken about?
Yeah.
We're giving away one of them. So every £5 donation gets you a raffle into the giveaway for the ice bath as well. Brand new from this amazing company called Brass Monkey, who've just donated to give this away.
Yeah.
But half the money is going to go to headstones themselves. There's a headstone company I'm working with who are doing it at cost price.
Yeah.
So half the money will go directly into the hands of parents. The other half of the money is going into tooling, so sandblasters and CNC machines, so we can produce the headstones indefinitely. That's the goal. If we can produce a headstone for £50, which is what it will cost raw material wise with volunteers, we can, on a small scale, solve the problem, at least locally, and we can try and replicate that in other places. And then we're also trying to appeal to the government to include it in their budget, which is the ultimate goal, just include the headstones in the budget to fix the situation. So if people wanted to donate to that, there's a GoFundMe page set up, or there is Brass Monkey giveaway on MulliganBrothers.com. So the pool where the money goes is the same place, but there's two ways of doing it. You can just donate on the GoFundMe, which we're getting some support on, and then the giveaway obviously is a little bit more attractive because you get something in return.
Can we do like something from? Can we do item the auction off too?
Oh, brother, that'd be amazing.
We'll do something. We could pick something out from Vortex.
That'd be amazing.
We'll be totally behind it.
I mean, it'd help with our American audience because the Brass Monkey Ice Bath, we're only allowed to run raffles. It's a gambling thing. We're only allowed to run raffles in the UK. Yeah. So the raffle wouldn't extend to the US at the moment because we'd have to go through different laws in the US and stuff.
Yeah, we'll do like a high-end Vortex optic.
Oh man, that would be incredible.
And get people, like the American audience would definitely.
Oh bro, I appreciate that so much. Yeah, that'd be amazing.
Let's just consider it done. Let's do it.
Oh man, and then if you know somebody who's experienced stillbirth, if you drop me a message, we want to get a list going. Like we want to start getting that list going of people and start getting those headstones to families. So that's the that's the ultimate goal, to try and solve that issue. Because there's some people who it is part of their grieving process. Some people, it might not be, but there are some people I know, like me, I've felt guilty for years about it. And people shouldn't feel that way, especially loss of a child. Like we should be supporting them, not, they shouldn't feel rubbish about it. So,
yeah, I mean, we talked about it already, but there's so many people that struggle with loss. One thing that we know is death is certain. So everyone's going to experience either their own death or more likely going to experience someone else's death at some point in your life. And, what would you, from what you've been through and what you're doing now, what would you say to someone that's dealing with the grief and loss of, we've talked about it some, but last thoughts to share with someone that's dealing with loss?
It's a long process. We're almost 9 years later now. Yeah. And look, I'm running the whole country to deal with it with a stone on my back. So I think you got to find your coping mechanisms. You got to find support. I had my mom, she'd experienced the same thing I'd experienced. You got to share. Don't be one of those people, in my opinion, who keeps it all inside. In fact, that would be the biggest advice I would say. In terms of dealing with the grief, find something, whether it's work, passion, purpose, whatever it is, speaking to people, art, poetry, all these different things can be helpful. The one thing I would advise, I guess, not to do is don't lock it away. This has been the worst thing I've ever done. I locked it away for a long period of time and it spilled out in weird and wonderful ways all the time.
Yeah.
And grief, it will get you at some point. You cannot lose a best friend, a child, a brother or sister, and just put it in you're going to you can lock it away, but you're going to lose a part of yourself in doing that. And
it's going to catch up.
It's going to catch up with you. And, you owe it to yourself at some point when you're ready to deal with it. Because again, you can't lock away grief and loss of somebody. This is what I found out. You cannot lock away the grief and the loss of somebody and put it deep down in you and also experience the love for that person. You can't have it both ways. Right. I never have. If you're trying to suppress that kind of feeling, suppress those emotions of loss, you've also got to suppress pretty much everything else that surrounded that person, which is just, it's not worth it, in my opinion. It's painful to go through it, but it's not worth it. And now I've realized with Jacob, like, unlocking that and feeling that love is like, that's so much more powerful, so much more rewarding. And it can be painful at times, but that's don't lock it away.